Good morning and welcome to another episode of Business Beat with me, Odette. Every parent knows that choosing a school is probably one of the most stressful things that you would go through. What made it even more difficult during the past year for a lot of parents is that homeschooling had to be done. COVID saw us needing to rethink how children are educated. With me today is the headmaster at Newton House. He is the principal and will be talking to us about what parents need to know about the business of schooling. Good morning, Shaun.
Good morning, Odette.
Welcome to Business Beat.
Thank you. It's good to be on your show.
So, Shaun, as a parent, I've experienced the anxiety of needing to choose a school for my son. I know that a lot of parents, when needing to choose a school, look for convenience in terms of location, commuting to and from school above anything else. What are the top tips, 2 or 3 things that you think parents ought to know when choosing a school?
All right, Odette, that's a very good question. The first thing I'd like to just debug very briefly is the whole idea around IEB versus the NSC or CAPS curriculums, because that sometimes plays quite a crucial role for a parent.
Right.
Now, regardless of which curriculum the school provides, at the end of grade 12, your child will be issued with a National Senior Certificate matric exam, which is issued by Umulusi. Now, Umulusi is the Quality Assurance Authority, and on that matric certificate, it doesn't state your school, and it also doesn't state whether you did IEB or NSC. So that shouldn't be one of the factors to consider.
Okay.
Factors that I would consider would certainly be class size. Inquire at the school as to how big their classes are. There have been significant studies around the world on ideal class sizes, and they have found from those studies that smaller class sizes do produce better academic results overall.
Right. What is the optimal size of a class, would you say, for each child to be able to get that individualized attention?
The studies have shown that the ideal class size is roughly between 12 and 18 children.
Wow.
And hence the reason why we have capped our class sizes at 12. But unfortunately, it's not all possible at all schools.
Of course. And then let's talk a little bit about e-learning. Now, South Africa suddenly saw itself thrown into a national lockdown, which included children not being able to go to school. And I know from friends and colleagues that even kids at some of the top schools were not geared for this. Some of the best schools in South Africa were not geared for online learning, and they were trying to do what we do, MS Teams or Skype, and build an airplane while it was flying. It was quite chaotic last year. What is the landscape like now? Where are we as a country in terms of, e-learning versus blended learning versus contact learning?
I think the country has certainly come a long way in the last year, and we've been forced to do that. We were in the fortunate position at our school where we already had infrastructure in place. Our school operates on the Google platform, so the transition across to online learning was a smooth transition for us. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, there were a number of schools who weren't in the position that we were, both independent and public schools.
Yes.
So the biggest challenge that those schools faced was trying to now train their teachers on this platform remotely and trying to teach the children how to use the platform. I think since then, and since schools have reopened, we have suddenly seen a dramatic improvement in the online offering. And I think that schools in South Africa have done exceptionally well in managing that. Obviously, we've got to take into consideration accessibility and technology availability at schools.
So here's a bit of a contentious thing. We know that in South Africa, not everybody can afford the fees associated with private school education. Do you think that there is an onus on the part of private schools to set aside a portion of their income for bursaries for children who may qualify, say, academically, or children who simply cannot afford to attend a private school under normal circumstances, but do meet some criteria, be it sporting achievement, in terms of their natural abilities. What do you think South African private schools can do to assist the burden that is currently on the public school system?
It's a very good question, Odette, and I think a number of private schools are already doing that, especially in light of sport bursaries, academic bursaries, so they are assisting children in that area. But unfortunately, we have got such a large proportion of our population who doesn't have access to it. So the assistance that can be offered from an independent school perspective is quite a drop in the ocean compared to what the real need is out there.
So if you had a message that you could convey to government, what would you say that would be? Would it be migrate to an online platform so that the costs of books will be eliminated, but obviously that would come with the cost of data and the requirement for electricity, which we know is not always available?
Yes. So my message would essentially be to ensure that every child has got access, and obviously every teacher has got access. We've learned through this pandemic that while online learning is a good substitute for education, it certainly is not an equal to education in the classroom. So the first prize is to have the children in the classroom, but we've also learned that we do need to have a backup in place. So essentially, it's if every child in our country can have access to a device. It doesn't have to be the fanciest device. It can be the smallest cell phone that is able to take video calling so that they can stay in communication with their teachers.
And of course, we know that it's all about the numbers, right? So in order to run a profitable education institution, you need to have enough students in order to cover the overheads from a business perspective. When you start talking about putting in e-learning platforms and reducing the size of classes, from a business model perspective, how do you ensure profitability without putting the fees up to an astronomical amount of money? Is there a way that other schools can learn about how to be more smart, how to work smarter, how to look after their bottom line?
Sure, and I think there's a fine line between profitability and greed at the end of the day. We do need to obviously make profits in an organization, but we also can't compromise the education of the learners. So where we are sitting in a position where we cap our classes at 12, yes, it is profitable, but if we had 25 in our classes, yes, it would be significantly more profitable, but at the cost of academic performance for our students.
So it's that fine balance, as would be with any business. You know,
absolutely.
A lot of businesses look at volumes to generate profit, but then there is the quality control. And like any business, a school is a business and should be afforded an opportunity to make profit. Shaun, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for enlightening us as parents about the differences between, for example, an IAB or the CAPS curriculum. Who knew that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just about making sure you choose the right school. And the right school, from what I'm understanding, is one that can cater for your child, both in the classroom and at home, and can offer your child an opportunity to get the best quality of education.
Thank you, Odette, and thank you for having me.
To the viewer, I know as a parent how difficult it is to choose a school, and I know how important it is as a parent to want to give your child the best education. But from what I've seen over the last year, it's so important to make the right choice in schooling for your child. I understand not everybody can afford private schooling, but what everybody can afford to do is to take the time to choose the right school. A school that's not only interested in a bottom line, but also interested in a quality education for your child. Until next week.